My husband aggressively handed me a plane ticket mid-fight. One way. You're done here, he growled. To where? I asked, voice breaking. Back to the man you left for me, he snapped. My knees buckled. You contacted him. He nodded. He told me everything. Even about the baby. Silence fell over the room as my stepson whimpered. You promised you'd never leave again. I looked at the ticket and knew this time I had to choose. The paper in my hands felt heavier than it should have. It was just a piece of cardstock, flimsy and smooth, but it might as well have been made of iron. The words printed on it blurred before my eyes, but the destination burned itself into my brain. A one-way ticket. To a past I had buried. You're done here, Roger said, his voice stripped of anything warm. My breath hitched. To where? His jaw clenched, the muscles twitching. Back to the man you left for me. My body went numb. The room around me, the soft glow of the kitchen lights, the half-eaten plate of pasta on the table, the sound of Max's cartoon playing faintly from the living room, felt like it was slipping away, like I was watching my life dissolve through frosted glass. I swallowed against the tightness in my throat. You contacted him? Roger nodded, his expression unreadable. He told me everything. Even about the baby. The baby. A sharp, invisible knife twisted in my gut. My knees buckled before I even felt them giving out. A small sound came from the doorway. I turned my head just enough to see Max standing there, his little face pale, his fingers curled into the fabric of his pajama top. His bottom lip trembled. You promised you'd never leave again. My heart cracked and suddenly I knew I couldn't run this time. I never wanted this life to fall apart. For almost 10 years, I had been Rachel Fairchild, the wife of a man who saved me, the stepmother to a boy who had needed me. I had built something steady here, something I had convinced myself was real. Roger and I met when we were both wreckage of other people's choices. He was a grieving widower with a toddler, and I was a woman fleeing the remnants of a past love I had no strength to face. We were two broken things that fit together. Roger had steadiness. Stability. He was the kind of man who kept spare batteries in the drawer and filled the gas tank before it hit half empty. He didn't take risks. He didn't ask for more than what I could give. So I gave him everything. I poured myself into loving him, into raising Max as if he were my own, into stitching myself into the fabric of this family. And for almost a decade, I thought I had done it. I thought the past was dead. But it turns out, the past doesn't die. It waits. Roger wasn't the type to let his anger explode. He never raised his voice, never slammed doors or threw things. His fury was quieter, more calculated, like an animal that had learned not to waste energy on a fight it knew it would win. Now, he stood across from me, arms crossed over his chest, watching me crumble. I tried to steady my breath, but the words wouldn't come. He let the silence stretch before he spoke. You told me you left him because you were unhappy. That was a lie. I shook my head. It wasn't. Stop. His voice was sharp, a blade cutting through the last thread holding me together. Stop lying to me. I flinched. Roger had never spoken to me like this before. Not once. But then again, I had never done something like this to him before. The letter sat on the counter, its contents etched into my memory like a scar. Jasper Alden. My ex. The man I had run from, the man I had left behind with no explanation, no closure. He had found Roger. And he had told him everything. The baby. The truth I had swallowed whole, the grief I had never let surface, the loss I had buried so deep that even I had started to believe it had never happened. Roger's voice was low when he spoke again. You carried his child. My stomach clenched. You miscarried. He exhaled sharply. Alone. The pain in his voice was a physical thing, like he was choking on the truth. I squeezed my eyes shut, willing myself to stay standing. I didn't want you to know. Because you knew I wouldn't have married you if I did. I flinched again. That's not true. But was it? Roger had loved me for my quietness, my simplicity. The way I never complicated things, never asked for too much. But the truth was, I was complicated. I was messy and broken and selfish in ways he had never seen. Until now. My fingers curled into the fabric of my sweater. Roger, he held up a hand. Just answer me this. His voice was quieter now, but no less sharp. If you never lost that baby, would you have still left him? The question struck me like a slap. I opened my mouth, closed it. I didn't have an answer. Roger let out a bitter laugh. That's what I thought. The paper rustled in his hand as he lifted the ticket between two fingers. So here's your chance, Rachel. His voice was calm again, eerily steady. You left him once. But now you have the chance to go back. I stared at the ticket. Roger stepped closer, lowering his voice. You don't belong here, do you? His words sank into me like stones. I do. My voice was hoarse. I do belong here. Then prove it. I swallowed hard. How? Roger didn't answer. He didn't have to. Because I already knew. There was no quick way to fix this, no easy way to prove that I had chosen him for him and not because I had been running from something else. I looked past him, at the small figure standing in the doorway. Max's tiny fingers were clenched in the hem of his pajama top, his knuckles white. I had promised I would never leave him. I had already broken that promise once. I would not do it again. A deep breath shuddered out of me as I reached forward and took the plane ticket from Roger's hand. Then, slowly, deliberately, I tore it in half. The sound filled the room like a gunshot. Roger's eyes darkened. What the hell are you doing? I'm staying. A muscle in his jaw ticked. Rachel, I'm staying. My voice didn't shake this time. Roger looked at me for a long time, his eyes searching mine. Max let out a breath he had been holding. I turned to him, kneeling so we were eye level. I'm not leaving, I whispered. His little arms flung around my neck, and he buried his face in my shoulder. Roger didn't say anything. Not right away. But the plane ticket lay in two pieces on the floor, and for the first time since this conversation started, I saw something flicker in his expression. Something that wasn't anger. Something that might have been hope. The torn ticket lay between us, the pieces curling at the edges like a wound trying to heal. Roger's face was unreadable. His hands, usually so steady, flexed at his sides like he was holding back something sharp, something volatile. I told you to leave, he said finally. His voice was quiet. Too quiet. Max's fingers gripped my sweater like I might vanish if he let go. She's staying, he whispered, as if saying it out loud would make it true. I felt his little heartbeat against my chest, fast and uneven. A child's panic. Roger's eyes flickered to Max, then back to me. A war raged behind them. I could see it, even if he wouldn't let it show. Then, without another word, he turned and walked away. The sound of the front door opening and slamming shut cut through the silence. Max flinched. I exhaled, slow and shaky, before pressing my lips to his hair. It's okay, baby, I murmured. It's okay. But it wasn't. Nothing was okay. I knew where he was. There was only one bar in town he ever went to, a quiet, dimly lit place off the main road. A place where men like him, men who carried more pain than they knew how to hold, went to drink it down, one slow sip at a time. I thought about going to find him. But what would I even say? Would I beg? Would I try to explain something that had no explanation? So I stayed home. I put Max to bed. I sat in the dim glow of the living room, my hands wrapped around a mug of tea that had long gone cold. And I waited. For what? I wasn't sure. Maybe for Roger to come home. Maybe for the past 10 years to make sense. Neither happened. When I finally crawled into bed, the sheets were cold on his side. I woke up to the sound of Max in the kitchen, pouring himself a bowl of cereal. I checked my phone. No messages. The house felt wrong without Roger in it. He was the kind of man whose presence filled a space, even when he wasn't saying much. Now, the silence was unbearable. I took a deep breath and walked to the kitchen, trying to keep my voice light. Good morning, sweetheart. Max didn't look up. He pushed his cereal around with his spoon. Is Dad mad at you? The question hit me like a punch. I pulled out a chair, sitting across from him. Yeah, I admitted. He is. His little face twisted. Are you gonna leave? God. The fear in his voice. I reached for his hand, squeezing gently. No, baby. I'm not going anywhere. He looked at me for a long time, his big brown eyes searching my face like he was trying to decide if I was telling the truth. Finally, he nodded. Okay. I wished I could believe my own words as easily as he did. The moment I heard the truck in the driveway, my pulse jumped. Max had been watching cartoons, but he scrambled off the couch the second he heard the engine cut off. He bolted for the door before I could stop him. I followed, my stomach twisted in knots. Roger stepped inside, looking exhausted. He hadn't shaved, and his shirt was wrinkled like he had slept in his truck. Max threw his arms around him. Dad. Roger exhaled, long and slow, before resting a hand on the back of Max's head. Hey, bud. His voice was rough, like he had spent the night grinding glass between his teeth. I stood a few feet away, my arms wrapped around myself. Roger's eyes finally lifted to mine. Something in his expression softened when he saw me. Not enough to undo the damage, but enough to remind me that I still knew this man, that I still loved this man. I made breakfast, I said quietly. It's probably cold now, but I'm not hungry. My throat tightened. Max pulled away, looking between us. Are you mad at Mom? The question made Roger's jaw clench. I need to talk to her, he said. Why don't you go finish your show? Max hesitated, his fingers gripping the hem of Roger's shirt. Go on, buddy, I said gently. We're okay. I wasn't sure if that was a lie. Max studied me for a long moment before nodding and disappearing back into the living room. Roger exhaled, rubbing a hand over his face before turning to me. Rachel. I swallowed. Just let me talk. His voice was quiet, but firm. I pressed my lips together, nodding. He ran a hand through his hair. I don't know how to do this. A lump formed in my throat. Roger, he shook his head. No, listen. I love you. I love you more than I've ever loved anyone. But last night, when I found out about him, about everything you never told me, I felt like a f***ing idiot. His voice cracked on the last word. I flinched. Did you ever love me? He asked. The question made my heart stop. I stepped forward. Roger, of course I did, of course I do. He let out a bitter laugh. I don't even know if that's true. My chest ached. It is. He didn't move. Didn't reach for me. I don't know how to trust you anymore. The words were soft. Devastating. I felt my breath catch, my body swaying under the weight of them. Roger had always been the steady one. The one who held us together when things got rough. But now, for the first time, I saw the cracks in him. I saw the part of him that had never healed from losing his first wife. The part of him that had let me in because he thought I was safe. And now, he was realizing I wasn't. I had hurt him. Badly. I stepped closer, my fingers itching to reach for him, to hold him, to tell him everything would be okay. But I didn't know if it would be. So instead, I whispered, tell me what you need me to do. Roger looked at me for a long, agonizing moment. Then, finally, he said, I don't know. And for the first time since I met him, I saw something in his eyes that terrified me. Doubt. Roger's words sat between us like a loaded gun. I don't know how to trust you anymore. I had expected anger. I had prepared myself for coldness, even resentment. But doubt? Doubt meant something deeper. It meant uncertainty. It meant Roger was standing at a crossroads, one that I had put him on, and he had no idea which way to turn. I had been here before, but last time, the choice was mine. This time, it was his. Roger exhaled, his fingers pressing against his temples like his own thoughts were too loud. I need space. My stomach clenched. What does that mean? He shook his head, his jaw tightening. It means I don't know how to look at you right now. A sharp, searing pain spread through my chest. Are you leaving? My voice was hoarse. Roger looked at me, his expression unreadable. I live here, Rachel. But that wasn't an answer. It wasn't a yes. It wasn't a no. It was something in between, and that was somehow worse. I wanted to beg him to tell me what to do. To tell me how to fix this. But Roger wasn't a man who handed out roadmaps. He had always been steady because he believed in right and wrong, in truth and loyalty. And now, his entire foundation was cracked. Because of me. I swallowed hard. Okay. Roger let out a breath, his shoulders dropping just slightly, like he had been preparing for a fight that never came. Okay, he echoed. Then, without another word, he turned and walked away. This time, the door didn't slam. This time, the silence was worse. Roger was home. But he wasn't here. He went to work. He came back. He made sure Max brushed his teeth and ate dinner. But he didn't see me. Not really. He slept on the couch. He barely spoke. And the worst part? I didn't blame him. The space between us stretched further every day, widening like an open wound. Every time I tried to speak, to reach for him, he pulled back. Not in anger. In indifference. And that was more terrifying than rage. Of course he did. Kids always notice. One evening, I was tucking him into bed when he whispered, "Is Dad still mad?" My throat tightened. I forced a small smile, smoothing his blanket over his chest. We're working through something, sweetheart. Max studied me, his big brown eyes far too wise for a 6-year-old. Are you getting divorced? I flinched. Max, it's okay, he said quickly, but his little fingers clenched the blanket tighter. Some kids at school have 2 houses. Maybe that's what's gonna happen. A sharp, aching pain shot through my chest. I leaned in, brushing his hair back gently. I don't want that, I whispered. Max swallowed hard. Does Dad? I didn't have an answer. So I did the only thing I could. I kissed his forehead. I love you, I whispered. No matter what happens, I will always love you. He nodded, but his face stayed tense. I stayed there long after he closed his eyes, watching his little chest rise and fall, wishing I could go back to the version of myself that had never caused this pain. It was late. Max had been asleep for hours. I was sitting on the edge of our bed, my bed now, I supposed, staring at the empty space beside me. Then I heard the floor creak. I looked up. Roger stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching me. His face was unreadable, but his presence alone sent my heart hammering. I swallowed. Hey. His eyes flickered to the rumpled sheets, then back to me. Have you talked to him? My stomach dropped. Jasper? He nodded. I shifted uncomfortably. No. Why would I? Roger let out a humorless laugh. You mean besides the fact that he's apparently still in love with you? I stiffened. That's not true. Really? He raised an eyebrow. Because when I spoke to him, he sure as hell sounded like a man who wanted you back. My skin went cold. What did he say? Roger exhaled sharply, rubbing a hand over his face. He said he never stopped looking for you. That he still doesn't understand why you left. His voice darkened. That you never gave him a real answer. My breath caught. You just vanished, Rachel. Roger's voice was quieter now, more exhausted than angry. You didn't just leave him. You erased yourself from his life. I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly feeling exposed. I had to. Roger studied me. Why? Silence. Tell me the real reason, he said. Not the one you told yourself to make it easier. I closed my eyes. I had spent 10 years running from this. Now, there was nowhere left to hide. I had loved Jasper. I had loved him recklessly, desperately, in the way that made the world feel too bright and too fragile all at once. But love isn't always enough. Jasper was passionate, charismatic, the kind of man who made promises with the full intent of keeping them until life got in the way. We had been together since college, swept up in something wild and exhilarating. But when the 2 pink lines showed up on that test, reality slammed into us like a freight train. Jasper swore he was ready, that we could do it, that we would figure it out. And I believed him. Until the night he didn't come home. And then another night. And then another. I never got the full truth, not really. But I knew the signs. The missed calls, the excuses, the way his eyes darted away when I asked where he had been. I told myself it was just stress. That he would snap out of it. That he would show up the way I needed him to. Then, at 8 weeks pregnant, I sat in an empty apartment, clutching my stomach through blinding pain, realizing I had never felt more alone in my life. By the time Jasper finally called me back, the damage was done. And I was already gone. I left before he ever had the chance to make me stay. Because if I stayed, I would have waited for him forever. And I couldn't survive that. Roger was staring at me, his expression unreadable. That's why you left? His voice was rough. I nodded. I couldn't be second choice anymore. Something flickered in his eyes. Something sharp and raw. Then why, he asked, his voice quiet but firm, did you make me second choice? Roger's words hung in the air, heavy and unshakable. Then why did you make me second choice? The question punched through me. Because he was right. I had left Jasper because I couldn't be an afterthought anymore. Because I had spent years waiting for someone to choose me completely, and I couldn't survive the heartbreak of being almost enough. And yet, somewhere deep down, in ways I never admitted to myself, I had still carried Jasper with me. Not in love, not in longing, but in the quiet, unresolved corners of my past. Roger had never deserved that. I swallowed the lump in my throat. I never meant to. He let out a breath, rubbing a hand over his jaw. Yeah, I know. But knowing didn't make it hurt less. The next morning, I woke up to a message. We need to talk. It's important. I stared at it, heart pounding. Jasper had never let things go easily. But what could he possibly want now? I had already lost enough. I wasn't about to let him drag me into another storm. I almost ignored it. Almost deleted it. But then, something in me shifted. For years, I had let Jasper exist as this unfinished chapter, this shadow in my past that still had power over me. Maybe it was time to close the book myself. Jasper looked exactly the same. That was the first thing I noticed. Same confident stance. Same easy smirk. Same piercing eyes that once made me believe in things that were never real. But something was different too. I saw him now. Really saw him. Not as the love of my past. Not as the man who broke me. Just a man. And suddenly, he didn't seem so large. We sat across from each other in a small cafe, the silence thick between us. You look good, Rach, Jasper said, leaning back in his chair. I didn't smile. Why did you want to meet? His smirk faltered, and for a second, something almost like guilt flickered across his face. He exhaled. I needed to see you. I needed to understand why you left. My fingers curled around my coffee cup. I told you why. No, he said, shaking his head. You never really did. You just disappeared. One day you were mine, and the next he snapped his fingers. Gone. I inhaled slowly. I wasn't yours, Jasper. That was the problem. His jaw tensed. That's not fair. I let out a quiet laugh. No? You disappeared on me when I needed you most. I nearly lost everything and you weren't there. So tell me, what exactly wasn't fair? He shifted, guilt creeping into his expression. I wasn't perfect, but I would have come back. You didn't even give me the chance to fix things. I tilted my head. And that's why you're really here, isn't it? You don't actually care about why I left. You just want to know why you didn't get to be the hero. His mouth opened, then shut. For once, Jasper West had nothing to say. And that was the moment it hit me. I had spent years carrying the weight of this man, holding onto the idea that, somehow, he had power over my story. That leaving him had been some great, unresolved wound. But now, sitting across from him, I realized the truth. He had never been the love of my life. He had been a lesson. And I had finally learned it. I stood. I don't owe you closure, Jasper. I don't owe you anything. His face twisted. Rachel, no, I met his gaze, unwavering. You don't get to rewrite history just because you don't like how it ended. You lost me. And that was your choice. I watched the words sink in. Watched the confidence slip just a little. Then I walked away. Roger was in the backyard when I got home. Max was inside, watching TV, but Roger sat alone on the back porch, staring out at nothing. I stepped outside, the evening air cool against my skin. He didn't look at me, but he didn't move away either. I sat beside him, our shoulders almost touching. I saw him today, I said quietly. Roger's jaw tensed. Yeah? I let out a breath. And for the first time, I realized I don't regret leaving him. His head turned slightly, just enough to glance at me. I don't regret it, I repeated. But I do regret hurting you. Roger's fingers tapped against his knee, a quiet rhythm. Did he want you back? I thought about Jasper's face, the way his expression had shifted when he realized I wasn't the same girl he had lost. He wanted something, I admitted. But it doesn't matter. Roger was quiet for a long time. Then, finally, he spoke. I was never your second choice. His voice was rough, but steady. You just didn't realize I was your first until now. My throat tightened. I turned to face him fully. I choose you, Roger. I inhaled shakily. If you'll still have me. He looked at me then, really looked at me. And after a long, quiet moment, he reached for my hand. His fingers laced through mine, warm and familiar. It wasn't a promise that everything was fixed, but it was a beginning. And this time, it was ours. Weeks later, I got a call. It was from a mutual friend, someone who had stayed in touch with Jasper over the years. Did you hear? They asked, their voice laced with amusement. Hear what? Jasper's business deal fell through. You know, the one he's been banking on for months? Turns out, some investors backed out at the last minute. I blinked. Why? A pause. Then, well, one of them had a little chat with Roger. I almost dropped the phone. You're telling me, Roger? Oh yeah, they laughed. I don't know what he said, but whatever it was, it made Jasper very nervous. I couldn't stop the slow, satisfied smile that spread across my lips. No death. No cruelty. Just Jasper getting exactly what he had earned. And the man who really loved me making sure of it.